welcome to the Diverse Professionals Network. Thank you all for joining me and our special guest, Joy Cho, owner and pastry chef at Joy Cho Pastry. Everyone give her a welcome. Just want to let you know what we're doing here at the network. We're creating a network where people can discover and support minority businesses, entrepreneurs, and leaders in the community. Through podcasts and networking events, people can learn how minority leaders use a mindset of growth, emotional intelligence, leadership development, and financial literacy to overcome adversity in the midst of change. Because we believe that diversity unlocks innovation. So join the network today. Also, if you've been enjoying this podcast series, feel free to hit that subscribe and like button. Lastly, if you think of a question to ask Joy later, drop it in the comments in the chat and we'll be able to get it towards the end. And if we don't, leave your email and she has so kindly been willing to email everyone who has asked a question that we haven't been able to get around to. So feel free to drop likes, drop comments, and drop questions in the chat. Thank you so much, Joy, for coming onto this show. I really appreciate it. So just kind of I love giving everyone kind of a background how we got here today. So I was back in January and I was actually working out with a fellow friend, Andrew Hahn, and I was telling him about the podcast series and he was like, you know what? I found someone that is perfect to be on your podcast today. And he's like, have you seen what Joy Cho has been doing lately? I was like, I had no idea. And he pulled up your Instagram and I was just blown out the water. I saw those gem cakes and all the beautiful pastries that you've been able to create. And so I've known you since high school. We went to the same high school. And much like I was telling you, I've always kind of admired you and looked up to you because you're smart and you were Asian and you had such a good reputation at the school. And so I just was looked up to you and admired and aspired to be like you. I know you went on to go study poli-sci at the University of Chicago. So I was like, wow, she's doing big things. And next thing I know, you have your own business and are going and it's taken off. And so that's so exciting. I'm so excited to celebrate that and hear more today about your journey. So kind of walk me through, how did you go from a small school in Ohio to graduating early from the University of Chicago with a poli-sci degree to now being a pastry chef and owner of Joy Cho Pastry in New York City?
Oh man. Well, thank you first, Jordan, for having me on this podcast. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here. Yeah, that's a great question. And sometimes I wonder the same thing. And it's definitely been a journey and nothing in this whole process could I have predicted, honestly. I feel like everything for me has been just, what's like the next step in front of me? And so during high school, I really did enjoy like gov. So I wanted to study poli-sci and wanted to get out of Ohio for a bit. So yeah, I ended up going to UChicago and then I really enjoyed doing poli-sci and I thought that I was pretty unsure about what I would do after graduation, but with my internships, I was able to explore like government, nonprofits, think tanks. And I feel like a very like safe path would have been to go to like law school or something, but I just didn't think that was for me. And so, I moved to New York after graduation and then worked in like a different job and decided to explore pastry school in the evenings as I've always really liked to bake. And one thing led to another, started working kind of at my dream restaurant and then pandemic hit. So wow. It's been a journey.
That's awesome. I mean, and so you talked about like, it's just been such an unexpected journey and it's been really smooth, but each step has made sense, but there's been risk involved in every step, but you've learned how to manage risk. And, we talk about growth. So at what parts of your journey, because you talked about the safe route, right? You could have played it safe. You got an internship with the state of Ohio. You were a communications intern for the representatives, right? And you said it just made sense, probably the safe route, go to law school, which is still a high achievement. And so what kind of gave you the idea? I know you talked about that. How did you know what your dreams and goals were to really do what you're doing today, be a pastry chef and owner of Joy Cho Pastry? Because law school and pastry chef is kind of like complete two opposites. So how did you come to that realization that you needed to take that risk and go for it?
Yeah, great question. I think it was less of like this like pivotal moment of like, I need to choose one thing over another, and more like giving myself the space and the time to explore my interests. And I think that's very important. And definitely I felt very privileged to be able to explore pastry school without, first of all, committing up front to like changing my career, because I think as someone who puts a lot of pressure on myself, like that would not have flown. And so I think it's less about like, oh, like what moments made me like take a risk, and it was more like what moments did I allow myself to explore, and maybe, you know, be open to like where that could lead. So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, but absolutely. No. Yeah. Do you ever find those moments scary or vulnerable when you're trying to explore like yourself or do things that are new? Or, I mean, and we'll probably get this down to later. I mean, as an Asian culture, there's such a high standard to achieve and be successful. And you even talked about how you've put pressure on yourself to be a high achiever, high performer. I 100% relate to that. And even a little bit of a perfectionist inside of me too. And I know that exists very, very frequently in the Asian culture, almost to the point where if we're trying to put ourselves out there and explore what we really enjoy, two things. It's seen as, oh, you're just doing it for fun. You know, this is just a hobby. And then two, like it's not the safe route. Right. And so it's just like, how did, with doing that, how did you get outside of, putting all that pressure on yourself to really explore, the things that you really enjoy, and then turn that hobby into a business? Kind of talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I think a big part of it was just kind of the logistical process of how all this unfolded. So I was working in New York as an executive assistant on like the communications and marketing team at a company. And I was able to find a pastry program where I could do classes in the evenings after work. And so I think I wanted to manage my risk at the same time, because if I had just quit my job, decided to go to pastry school full time, like I think that would have just added a lot of pressure to succeed and like make a career out of this. Whereas like, I thought like, how could I like create space to explore both these things at the same time without committing to one or the other? So I think in a way I did play it safe by like creating those guardrails. And I'm very thankful I totally second what you say about Asian culture writ large. Like, I think that's something a lot of Asian Americans struggle with. But I will say, I think like the household I grew up in, like my parents really wanted, like instilled in us the fact that like the most important thing is to be fulfilled and happy. And like, rather than being like driving yourself in the ground, trying to be successful. And I think success flows out of like finding yourself and discovering what you actually like and being able to pursue that. So I grew up in a very healthy environment, I would say.
That's amazing. That's awesome, because like we talk about, not all the time does that happen, and it's almost kind of like the parents put additional pressure onto the kids to either fulfill their dreams or what they see for them or how they view success, and even almost to the point where the parents are scared of failure and kind of project that onto the kids. And it's like, they love you so much that they don't want you to fail, or they want you to succeed and be the best at everything that you're doing, but it's so scary. And so it's like, you're putting yourself out there, and, entrepreneurs, the two things that I'd say that people can count on to happen is one, failure, and two, change. Those are two things that will always be sure of. And those are the two things that a lot of people are scared of. So you talked about, okay, so it's 1 year ago, it's March 2020, COVID's about to happen. You were working at Gramercy Tavern, right? Talk to me about how that, how COVID impacted your career and how then you just was like, I'm going to go for it and I'm going to send it. I'm going to do this, create my business, start it on Instagram. Kind of tell me about that transition and that launch.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I feel like I was just doing what I could in the moment without a sense of like, I mean, I don't think anybody knew last year, like what the next week or month was going to look like. And so, like you mentioned, I think change is just a built-in part of life, right? And like being forced to adapt, like in these like very like pivotal moments, what is something I've learned definitely in the past year. So like last year in March, I lost my job, and I mean, it started out like I just want to bake and I'm unemployed and this really sucks, and I don't know how long this will last, but I'm going to just bake. And it started out with like on my Instagram story, like who wants like free delivered baked goods? And it would, I grew up in Columbus, so I had a network there. So it'd be like family, friends. And then I started thinking like, oh, would people like pay money to have like baked goods weekly, like delivered weekly to their, to their house? And I was just really surprised at the reception. Like people wanted that. I think they were like searching for something similar. So
Definitely. And that's awesome. So, out of wanting to just put it out there, hey, this is what I'm doing, and then realizing like, whoa, I actually got some really high quality pastries that I can make, and then you implemented a system delivery that you can deliver, anywhere in Columbus, and you kind of took that off to New York City. I mean, that's awesome. So these gem cakes, talk to me about these gem cakes because they look absolutely amazing. I mean, I've seen pictures on pictures. By the way, I need to figure out how I get a box of these because I need to find out how I need to taste them because I've just been looking at pictures. So I should have had a plate or something like that laying out here and tasted it. Do like a nice little taste test. So talk to me about what that is because they're like mini Bundt cakes, right?
Yes, they are. But I wanted to kind of go beyond like, well, first of all, I think when people think of Bundt cakes, they think of kind of an old fashioned, like perhaps dated dessert that is more of like a special occasion thing or something. But I kind of wanted to refresh the classic Bundt cake. And so they're 2-inch mini glazed sour cream Bundt cakes. And I'm really proud of like the texture I created for the cakes. I use a combination of all-purpose flour and sweet rice flour, as well as sour cream to really create like a moist but like springy texture. So like something at the intersection of like a pound cake, a sheet cake, a cake donut maybe. And so just I wanted to create something that people couldn't get elsewhere. And being able to experiment with like different glazes and different flavors, it gives like new life to each, flavor I create. So it was definitely born out of pressure and burnout as well. So I think that gives it an extra level of like meaning for me.
Wow. I love that story. And I think, so two things, I do want to talk about the flavors and Bundt cakes and your favorite and the most popular one, but I love what you just said there, that it was born out of pressure and burnout. So, I mean, oftentimes we think, and I talked a little bit about this before on the podcast, is that it's all about working hard and it's all about grinding. And you just got to work harder, work more hours. You got to grind harder. If this isn't working, then, you got to sacrifice sleep. You got to stay up all night and come up with the next and best and greatest thing and innovate. But actually for creativity and to be able to think and process and innovate and change, you have to be in a healthy place and not experiencing, burnout, not experiencing that pressure. So talk to me a little bit about that process. How did you take such a situation where you're experiencing pressure and burnout? One, what got you there? And two, how did you get out of it? And how were they born out of that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely burnout it really sucks. And I think every entrepreneur experiences it. And I think it's more of a question of when it happens and how you plan to respond to it. So yeah, I was honestly pretty discouraged at the end of 2020, moving into 2021. Like I felt like I didn't have a clear vision for Joy Cho pastry, or like, the financial instability was difficult. Just not feeling like I had like my own, product that I was like really proud of. Yeah. And so when I actually came back to Ohio for about a month to spend time with family around the holidays. And, I think you alluded to it, but, society is just all about like maximizing productivity all the time, grinding, hustling as hard as you can. And like at this, sacrificing other good things for that. And I think I really had to put myself in a mindset of like fighting that actively. And, to a lot of people, I'm sure it looked like, oh, she's just like taking a break. But honestly, it was just like a daily mental battle of like, no, I'm going to choose to step away, and I'm going to choose to not just jump back into like what wasn't really working that well, because that felt safer than like not just like taking time away and just like creating space for myself to like rest and think and talk to people. And I think I wouldn't have been able to get to Gem Cakes if I didn't consciously, take that time away. So I think that was the biggest factor, honestly.
Yeah. So it was born out of, you're like, I need to be around family. I need to be around people that I love. I need to rest. And how important rest is. I mean, there's a reason why you work 6 days and rest one day. You need that you need to actually build it into your schedule. We're always worried about, booking our calendar. What do we got to do next? I think it's born out of, and let me ask you this. Did you ever have feelings that you weren't good enough, or you weren't doing enough, or did you ever feel the pressure of comparing yourself to other entrepreneurs or other people that are doing what you're doing in the pastry industry?
For sure. I think that's like one of the toughest things. And I think even now it's just so natural to compare yourself with your peers, your colleagues, other people in the industry. And, when like other people are hustling, you just feel this inherent pressure to, keep up, but, I think it's just so admirable when like someone decides to go against that and against like the societal grain. And I think there's just like a lot of lies that are easy to believe about ourselves and our work. And so, and like our worth even, because it's so easy to tie your identity and worth with productivity. And I think that's really unsustainable long term.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you brought that up, because, if we feel there's a balance between being lazy and being productive, right? And then I love how you say that we often put our self-worth in our productivity, in what we're doing, in our careers. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's not where we find our value in. We find value in what you talked about, fulfillment and in happiness. And just being able to experience that rest kind of gave you this break, and kind of, did it help give you that creativity? Did the creative juices start flowing? And then I remember when we talked in January, you're like, I was just baking for the family. The family was eating, and we were just having a good time in holidays. So I love how that season of your life where you went from COVID, and then just the feeling of, okay, unemployment. Oh my gosh. I haven't even talked about what the feelings that unemployment creates, because like you talked about, if productivity and if our career is associated to our value that we put on ourselves, now all of a sudden that just wiped it out. I mean, almost half the people were like, I have no value. I have no worth. And so that kind of creates this need of, I got to work harder. I got to grind harder. I got to figure something out. I got to make money. And then you kind of, again, not only is it hard enough to be an entrepreneur with the pressure to perform, but then you add that pressure on top of yourself because of the value that you lost or that you don't have and are trying to get back. And so then you go into launching your business and trying to, get these orders out there, make money. And then you go into this season of life where you're like, I just need to take a break. I just need to rest. And I would say that to me was traveling. Like if I didn't find traveling the world, if I didn't find that vice to just get away from life and have no worries in the world, don't worry about work, don't worry about career, don't worry about daily life, daily stress. I mean, I got to actually know myself and really dig down deep. So then when I'm now where I am today, when I'm in those moments of feeling the pressure is on, needing to perform, needing to deliver, needing to provide solutions, needing to be an entrepreneur, X, Y, and Z. The list can go on and on and on. But what gets me through those moments of I'm about to give up, I'm about to quit, or this isn't working, or I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm not good enough, those lies that you talked about, if it wasn't for those moments of me knowing myself, knowing my why, knowing my purpose, knowing what makes me happy, knowing what gives me fulfillment, I mean, oh my goodness, I wouldn't be where I am today without that. So that's awesome that you kind of went through that journey and have been able to find and create gem cakes. So 2 questions really. What is your favorite or most popular flavor of gem cake, and kind of where do you see gem cakes going?
Oh man, my favorite flavor. That's hard. It kind of changes, but I found the black sesame flavor people really love, even people who are not familiar with that kind of flavor, but it's very nutty, kind of different and not too sweet. So I think people really enjoy that one. I'm actually rolling out the next round of orders. I have like a corn glaze. So I use like freeze dried corn in my glaze, and it's like kind of like a milky corn flavor, which might not sound appetizing, but like if you tried it, you would change your mind.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you got a new flavor alert coming out. So everyone got to stay tuned for that. And this is a little plug. We'll talk more about it. But if you're in the New York area and want to order these Bundt cakes, go on Joy Cho Pastry on Instagram or joychopastry.com and take a look at the flavors that she got coming out, the orders that she's coming out with. You guys just heard live on the podcast that she's coming out with a new flavor. So check it out. And yeah, so where you were featured in New York Times. I mean, and so you've been featured in all these different articles. One, that's it. That's amazing. That's something to succeed. So I got to give it up to you. I mean, that's super impressive. When you put that out there and I saw you, I mean, I was so happy for you. I mean, and to see someone else succeed and to see you succeed and to have that conversation that we had in January and fast forward a month, 2 months at max, right? And you're in the New York Times. Talk to me a little bit. So how did you get on the New York Times? And 2, like, what has been the response that you've been able to get after that?
Yeah, honestly, I had mentioned to my parents offhanded like a few months ago, like, oh, my dream would be to be mentioned in the Times. And my dad was like, oh, I don't think you're like that far away from it. And I was like, whatever, that's like nice to say. And then the restaurant critic, Pete Wells of the Times, actually DM'd me on Instagram. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people find things through Instagram now, even like restaurant critics. So yeah, I almost like fainted when I saw the message, but yeah, we had like a phone interview and and then a photographer came to my apartment, took pictures of the pastries, took some portraits. And to be honest, I would not believe that it was happening until I actually saw the article come out. So I knew that it was coming out, so pretty apprehensive. But yeah, following that, obviously, I think everyone mentioned in that article, like all the other pastry chefs, businesses are blowing up. Like there's so much demand, too much demand for me to meet on my own, So I'm just thinking more about that. But the reception has been great. Yeah. It's been really good. Yeah.
Wow. True dream come true. I mean, and yeah, that would be my dream too. I mean, to be mentioned in any new major, news outlet would be unreal. So congratulations on doing that.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you achieved your dreams at such a young age. So, I mean, I have to ask, so what's the future of Joy Cho Pastry? And I mean, what's next? That's a tough question. That's a loaded question because like we talked about, I mean, we were in January a couple months ago and here we are sitting today. And if we would have said like, oh, that would be your dream and you're going to accomplish your dream in a couple months, you'd be like, no, not real. So what is the future? I know it can change, but what is the future of Joy Cho Pastry?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth about like, oh, do I want to open like a brick and mortar store? And I think I'm leaning towards yes. And I always thought that, oh, that's like opening my own shop would be something I do when I'm like 50 or 55 after like I make enough money and work like a different job. But I'm realizing like it might be closer than I think. Like it might happen in the next, who knows, like 3 to 5 years. And
Yeah.
that's crazy to me. But I guess in the short term, I would love to. So I'm also a freelance food writer. So I want to get more into like recipe development. I've been thinking about maybe rolling out like a pastry like subscription box because I think people are interested in like a regular cadence of like Joy Cho pastry products. And yeah, just finding a way to take care of myself and make this sustainable. I think those are all,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Oh, I love that. And so what would kind of give you that indication that you got the green light to open up your own shop? I mean, is that funding? Is that orders, numbers? Kind of, let's talk a little bit logistics as far as with business,
Mm-hmm.
because it may not be me, it may not, maybe someone watching the podcast, but kind of what
Mm-hmm.
would give you that green light to say, I'm doing this, I'm going for it, I'm going to open my own shop. Would it be in New York City?
That's also a question. Maybe Brooklyn. I don't know. I've also thought about Columbus, but I don't think I'm quite done with New York yet. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what would give you that green light to open up your own brick and mortar?
yeah. That's a great question. And honestly, if anyone, maybe someone is listening, who I could connect with eventually, but I think it would come down to just like finding the right people to work with. Like, I don't know if that would be a business partner or just someone who has more of a strategic vision because that's not my skill set. Like
Hmm.
I love Joy Cho pastry and like, obviously baking is something I'm passionate about, but right now I'm like pretty much every part of my business, I'm doing it, right? Like all the website, like marketing, um, operations. So it's just at a certain point I can't do it all. So
Yeah.
I think it would come down to meeting the right people,
Right.
people who are invested in my business and want to see it succeed. And I think funding will come when it comes, but it's more about like connecting with the right people right now.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so excited for that. I really get, I can see it now. I really can. I can see you holding the ribbon out in front of your store and cutting the ribbon and opening up, whether it's Brooklyn, New York, or Columbus, Ohio, or even multi locations if it grows and
Sure.
scales that much. I mean, that would be awesome. So I can't wait to celebrate that. If it's in a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you'll definitely have my support and I'll definitely be there. So I
Appreciate
can't
it.
wait to see that. Also, everyone who has either thought of a question or commented in the chats below, continue coming up with those. Again, if we're not able to get to them today, drop your email in and Joy will reach out and she'll connect with you and answer your questions that you have. So just wanted to put that out there. Joy, just a couple other questions that I have. Really, I want to get into challenges and growth because that's been something that's really been a part of your journey, and we've kind of touched on it, and even maybe bring up part of your background too. But what is the hardest challenge you have had to overcome that has led you to success today?
Oh, I think we touched on it, but I do want to highlight again, like just when you feel like just like personal discouragement, honestly, because especially as like entrepreneurs, putting a lot of pressure on myself and there are like realities of like financial stability or lack thereof. And just feeling really just like emptied and like burnt out. And I think that's been my biggest challenge to date, honestly. And that was just a few months ago, where for some time, I was like, I don't even know if I want to be in the kitchen anymore. And being able to kind of grapple with that and give myself time to talk to trusted people and think about that and like not jump into anything where, like while my colleagues are, rolling out new things or like they're getting back into it after the holidays, like it's just all of those like collective experiences and like pressures and being able to choose myself over those pressures and like my own well-being over, these things. I think that has been the biggest challenge more than anything else.
Yeah. So just to be able to put your mental health, your rest, being able to prioritize those things over your goals and dreams and societal pressures that you talked about, having to work hard every day, work 60 hours, work 80 hours. I mean, kill yourself. I mean, and I think there's been a paradigm shift as far as this mentality goes. The old mentality is work 40 to 60 hours minimum, and you got to work for 20 years at the same company, and that's the only way that you're able to be successful. But actually, we've kind of been able to take a couple steps back, look at life at a bigger picture, and realize like life isn't about your 20-year career at one company or working 40 to 60 hours or, even what you do in your career, And so being able to prioritize yourself, do what makes you happy, and find that happy medium. Oftentimes you can turn a hobby into a business. That's what I've been able to see. Find things that you love to do. I love One Church because it's given me so many different quotes. One quote they kind of gave me yesterday is your strengths give you a role and your weaknesses give you a team. And so just to be able to be self-aware and know yourself, know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are able to kind of pull your team together or surround yourself with people that are going to support you or see a different perspective or give you insight to say, hey, this is what you should do or don't give up. And oftentimes, and this is another quote they gave me, when you're on the edge or on the verge of giving up, you're on the edge of a breakthrough. And that's exactly what I seen you, like you were on the edge of giving up. Like you were right there thinking like, I don't even want to be in the kitchen, but you're really just experiencing burnout. And then you were truly on the verge of a breakthrough and experienced a breakthrough. So I really love that. And so would you say that what you like prioritizing rest, prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your mental health has been, one, the hardest thing you've had to overcome, the hardest challenge. But would you say that is the best thing you've learned or experienced in your growth, or is there something that kind of plays into that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a lot of it is related to that because I don't think growth comes from just like hustling. Like, I think that, like, yes, there is a time and place for hustling, but you might be running in the wrong direction, like you might be running hard, going the distance, but just like in not the direction that you actually want to go eventually. And so I think it really does take consciously like stopping, looking and like examining and like being, like you said, like self-aware, and then like evaluating like, oh, what direction do I want to go? And like, even if you're not going at 100 miles per hour, at least you're going in the right direction. And that's like, and if like two paths diverge like this, like eventually they're going to be like really far apart. And so you want to make sure you're going in the right direction, and you want to make sure you feel good about the direction you're going in before running hard after it. So, and even after you find the right direction, I think it's important to prioritize rest and allow time to just like step away from work stuff. And I think that is actually good and sustainable like behavior. So
100%. Yeah. And that's, and I really love that. And I kind of want to go into, I'll go into some advice that you can give to somebody who may not maybe running 100 miles in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
But you talk about prioritizing growth. So one thing, a story I kind of want to bring up. So when I was traveling throughout Southeast Asia, right before I got started in my career at Huntington, I traveled for 3 weeks. I got to go to Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and Singapore. And, I just graduated college. And so I thought I prioritized just, I was like, hey, I'm taking a month off. I'll come back in February. But actually what I found and what I realized, I didn't think or dream big enough, because as soon as I got there and everyone that I met, a lot of them were from the UK or from Europe or from other countries. And what I found is that America is crazy, because I thought going to Southeast Asia for 3.5 weeks was a long trip. Because typically a vacation is like a week, 2 weeks max. But the people that I met, oh my goodness, they just done quit their job and traveling for 4 months. I mean, and it's incredible. Like I was like, that's exactly what I need to do. Or if you're experiencing burnout, do something crazy like that. It may sound nuts. It may not make any sense whatsoever. But do something that is going to give you such an experience in life, such value, such joy, such happiness and fulfillment. They can tell stories, and you can just be so excited about what you're doing. And so I always, for me, like I tell everybody, that's why I recommend traveling. I mean, and I did all this. So I traveled by myself, but I met a group. So I didn't know anybody before, but I made so many friends during that. So I always advise people to do that, to find something like traveling or to get that rest. That's always my advice. But what would you advise to someone, could be either a younger person trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do there. It could be in college, about to graduate. I don't know what's going on. It's a COVID world. I don't know what I want to do for my career. How do I even get started? There's advice for someone like that. Or it could be advice for someone that's in their career for 10, 15 years that just feels like they're dreading going into work on Mondays, that they live for the weekends because they don't got to work. Like what advice would you give to this, to people who are, going 100 miles an hour, running in the wrong direction, or just not really enjoying what they do for work or what they do in life? What advice would you give to those people to find themselves and find their happiness and fulfillment?
Yeah, that's tough because, not everyone has, not everyone knows what they like even, or what they're passionate about. And I think finding that is really difficult. And for me, it kind of came, in waves. And I'm really thankful for that. But I think I would just say, don't put so much pressure on yourself. It's okay to take time to figure things out. And that's actually the norm and not the exception. And I just think that so much of the way our society is built is just so unhealthy. And just being able to recognize and keep things in perspective, give yourself time. And even if it's oh, this, this pottery class makes me happy. Just if you can afford it and if you have the room to do it, do it. That might not be, what you make your career out of, but if we only pursued things that perhaps could turn into a career, I don't think a lot of people would actually discover what they like and enjoy. So I would say just follow the threads that are interesting to you, and don't come in with the pressure of having to find your passion and life purpose, because I think so much of it is just stepping stones and you never know where those will go, but you have to take the first step. And the first step might not look huge or significant, but it is a first step. So, and it's easy to be discouraged. I still get discouraged, but I think just knowing your worth, and your worth does not come from your work or vocation, just being able to delineate that and talk to trusted people. I think that's all very helpful.
I love that. I could not have said it better. I mean, just so true how important it is to just find things that you enjoy in life that make you happy. And it may be for an hour, it may be for 30 minutes or a split second. You may be doing something and ask yourself, why am I feeling happy? Like, what about this moment? And I think we oftentimes, and in addition to the pressure we put onto to ourselves, we live in the future. We live in what are we doing to achieve our dreams, or what are we doing to, get promoted or get to the next level or do this and do that. We don't always live in the present. We don't always know what it means to enjoy what's going on right now, and how we can optimize our happiness in those moments. So it could be like, for me, I'm happy just being around people. Like, I just love people. I love doing things like this, talking with people, building relationships, having conversations. And so that's what really gets me going through each and every day, and how I'm able to enjoy the moments each day. And it's different for everybody else, but you have to go through that journey of self-growth, of self-awareness, and you have to find out who you are. And not often enough do we take the time to take time for ourselves and to get to know ourselves. And it sounds so strange to do, but I talk to myself often, like I'm just writing things down, and that's okay, and it kind of helps me process my feelings and my emotions. And even to the point where, like you said, you feel discouraged, or you feel sad, or you feel unmotivated. Like, okay, are you just having a day, or is it just another day, or is it a pressure that you're putting on yourself? Did you go on social media and see somebody else be successful and you're not successful? Whatever it may be, they can come out of anywhere at any point in time. So you got to be aware of that too. And so one thing before we kind of leave here, you talked about the importance of, I always say growth is painful, right? And you got to learn to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, and how change really inspires growth, because it forces you to grow. So that's why people don't like change, because it forces you to grow. I mean, think about what we did this past year. Our whole world changed, and no one likes it. But you have to rebuild habits, and you have to be healthier, or find those healthier habits. But how that can help you make decisions and learning how to pivot. And I think that's exactly what you did come December, and even coming into this year, and as you go into the future. How your health and your mental state and your rest give you the optimal decision making and knowing where to pivot. So you talk about growth and the necessity of pivoting. Talk to me a little bit more about that, on how you're able to adapt to change, grow and thrive, and learn how to pivot and be successful at it.
Yeah, I think for me personally, a lot of this was forced change. And I don't think that I would be here today if I wasn't forced to pivot, right? And I think pivoting is just, it's a necessary skill. It's a life skill. And I think, that can come through a variety of means, like, feedback from people, or just, a pandemic. And so I think I'm continually learning to pivot in small and big ways. So, and I think it really comes with, like, you can't wait until something is perfect to, like, try something out. And I think that's something I've been learning, because I am a perfectionist and I want things to be, like, as tied up as possible, or, like, at least, like, 80% there. But sometimes you just have to, like, put it out there and then, like, iterate. And I think that the biggest, moments of growth for me have been just putting something out there, even if I'm not, like, it's not 100% there. And then just, like, adapting, changing it, and seeing it evolve over time. Like, that's really rewarding.
Yeah. No. Oh my goodness. I love that so much. Like I said, just learning just the process of pivoting, right? And just trying to understand yourself and how you react and respond to certain situations. We've talked about the success equation, the events plus your response gives you your outcome, and you can't control your events that happen. You can't control the change that was forced upon you, but you changed how you responded to it. And then I love how you talk about being a perfectionist, because I 100% relate relate to you on that. Like, and we talk about it. It could be part of the Asian culture. I mean, they always joke that an A- is an Asian F, and then I always joke, well, hey, I'm only half Asian, so the white side got to play in there a little bit. But that's all jokes aside. I love being both half Japanese and half white. I mean, it's given me such a unique perspective, but it's also helped me understand myself and my background and where I come from, and learning to take down that perfectionist inside of me. And I don't know who said it or where I learned it from, but they said to help with perfectionism, aim for progress and not perfection. And that's exactly what you just detailed. It's just being able to just put it out there, and you can make it better. You can continue and learn that continual improvement is a way of life. And so, and that can help you overcome perfectionism. And so I love that you talked about that. And I just wanted to give a little shout out to everyone who was able to put a comment or question down in the chats. Again, please put your email in there or put your contact information, and Joy will reach out to you since we weren't able to get around to it today. But I just want to give a quick shout out to my sponsors. I want to take a moment to thank all of them. ARC Media Services, which they provide exceptional video production services to small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and to government agencies. If you are interested to learn more, please visit arcmediaservices.com. And actually, sneak peek, we'll probably release this a little bit later, but they're going to come out with a Christian drama series. So I'm super excited to learn more about it. And so just be on the lookout for events and promos for that. I just want to give a shout out. Thank you so much to the Sycamore Studios. It's a co-working space for creatives. To check out the space, please visit thesycamorestudio.com. It's here in Dublin, Ohio, close to Plain City. It's a beautiful space. So if you guys haven't checked it out, please check it out today. I just want to give a shout out to SCOME Media and the Wilderness Agency. Thank you to both of you guys. I appreciate everything that you've been able to help out with the podcast, with the Diverse Professionals Network. And just want to give a shout out. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor and selecting one of our sponsor benefit packages, please contact me or apply online on our website. I am so excited for the future. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in to the podcast today. Just thank you so much, Joy, for taking the time to come on here and answer all my questions and just give a little bit more insight into your world and your journey and things that you've had to overcome and grow, and being transparent, being real, and being honest. Oh my goodness. I just thank you so much for that. And just want to kind of give everyone, put it on your calendar, May 28th. It'll be our in-person networking event. Penciled it in right now, COVID willing, that we're able to have it. But we will be featuring all the different sponsors at that event. Joy may be there, so fingers crossed, you may get to meet the Joy Cho from Joy Cho Pastry, and you'll be able to see some of her pastry creations there as well. Jared Barnes, he's going to be our keynote speaker, and he was on the podcast 2 weeks ago, actually a month ago. And so if you're interested to see these and meet these entrepreneurs and executives in person, you won't want to miss out. So put that on your calendar, May 28th. So just thank you all for watching. A little next steps. Everyone follow Joy on Instagram at joycho_pastry. And if you're in the New York City area, purchase a box of gem cakes. Our next podcast is going to be Friday, April 2nd at 12 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be Asante Hill from Dayton, Ohio. He's the president and CEO of Black Men and Women of Valor in Atlanta, Georgia. It's an organization that's committed to mentoring, cultivating, and developing underdeveloped and disadvantaged transitional youth. So register for the next podcast and stay tuned. Thank you all for watching. Again, thank you, Joy, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. I'll see you guys later. Thank you.